Welcome to the video for the demonstration of strings in C++. In our lecture, we introduced you to the concept of strings as a combination of characters. In other words, strings are taken as arrays of characters. But before we looked at strings, we were introduced to the data type character, how is implemented in C++, and of course how we can manipulate character data type or character data, like changing the case of a character from uppercase to lowercase, and the relationship that is there between the integer data type and the character data type in C++. So this video or in this demonstration, we just want to take you through some important aspects of strings, important operations that you can have. Let's begin our journey. First of all, we want to come up with a definition of a string and demonstrate the interpolation or the relationship between the character data type and the integer data type. Let's start by coming up with a character data type. So character data type is declared using char, so we can have char sex as we did, and we can immediately give a value for this. Make sure that the value is enclosed in a single quotes, so you can immediately give a value like that. And of course you can display the value that you've entered. So you can say sex is, then you display your sex here. So we are declaring our sex, we are giving it a value, single quotes, then we are displaying that. So that is our very first example. If we run this program, this is what we are going to have. So sex is F. So this is a character data type. Of course, you can achieve the same. You can declare and assign later like this. So you can assign the value later. Okay, let's just put M this time around. So we have declared and assigned the value later. And if we run this program, we are going to get the correct value here. Okay, you can also declare, and instead of assigning it later, you can have it from the user. So we can ask user to enter this value. So remember, it's a character. You don't need to enter more than one character. Just need to enter one character. Of course, here we're not making a check whether what you have entered is really correct one. So you can enter probably anything that is not representing sex, but we can get the values from the user in that way. So it's asking us to enter the values from the user. So we can put maybe F and press enter. It's going to demonstrate sex is F. So we are using character data type here. So as I mentioned before, we can also work with the relationship between the character data type and the integer data type. That relationship is going to be demonstrated by using alphabetical letters. We told you that I think in the previous video I showed you that the first letter A, capital letter A, has got a code of 65 as the ASCII code. So you can use that code 65 to represent A, or you can use A to represent 65, whichever. So here I just want to change my program a little bit. Okay, let me just start from scratch. We're going to change this one. We want to have a letter, and we are going to give this letter a value. Just say letter A, and we would like to see the value for this letter. What do we have? So we can try to find out the value of this letter by displaying its code. We can say code is then we can put whatever we want. So this is a letter. But if we run this program as it is, we are going to have it's going to give us our A, but we want it to give us a code. We can try to change this to cast it into integer. So we can cast this, whatever we are displaying here, into an integer, and if we run now, we are going to get the numeric representation of that. So instead of getting A, is showing us code is 65 here because of this casting. We are changing from a letter representation to numeric representation. So it's showing us 65. If you can put a small letter A and run this, it's going to give us 97. That's a code for the small letter A. So you can get a code for almost each other letter or any other character. If you want to know the code for, okay, let's see if H has got is within the ASCII code. So if you have H and you run this, it should give you a value for H, and it's 35. So you can get code for each and every character that you have on the keyboard. But our demonstration, we just want to use those codes which are used in maybe alphabet letters. Okay, so we have demonstrated that A has got a code of 65, and here we have just shown you how this can be changed from one to the other, or from what we had there. If you don't want to do the changing, you could as well just declare something here. So maybe into, okay, just to say I later, equals, so it's an integer, so you can have it equals later, equals what you had here. So you are taking that one and you are converting it to this one, and here instead of this, you can maybe have your I later. You can have your I later. So here you are taking the character value and assigning it to an integer value. So there will be implicit casting. It will be changed to an integer. So let's see what this one gives us. So if you run this one, it's giving you now the number without necessarily converting it here, because the changing is implicitly done here. So the letter is changed to an integer, and its representation is shown here. So it's showing 65. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you. And I think another thing that we can try to do is to ask a user to enter in a number, and we want that number to be shown as a integer. I mean, as maybe a user should enter a letter in a small letters, and that should be displayed as a capital letter. So we are going to just have variable, and we are going to ask a user to enter that variable. So we are going to ask a user, maybe to make it more meaningful in terms of readability or how we ask our values. We can say enter small letter, so should enter small letter there, and we are going to have that small letter stored into our letter variable. And after this, we want to change this small letter into something. So you can change it into something that you want. We want it to be changed in and be kept as a char character, which will be small one. You would want to have it maybe kept separately and displayed afterwards, or you would want to change it immediately while you are doing everything here. But let me just have it as a separate one. So you just say upper letter, and here you can have your upper letter equals, then you have your letter minus 32, this will give you the small letters, and whatever we're going to get here should be casted, because what we are going to have here is a number, but we want that number to be stored into a character. So instead of a number, we're going to keep now a character here. So we have this minus 32. Whatever it's going to have there is what we're going to demonstrate, to display here. So we're going to display. So it's going to enter a number, a letter, maybe A, B, or whatsoever, and that letter is going to be changed to a small letter, a capital letter, and that will be stored in upper letter. Then we can display that. So let's try. Okay, sorry, there is a missing semicolon here. Thank you. Okay, so let's try. We can enter, for example, a small letter C. Press enter. Then we have a capital letter C. Okay, so the words, let's change the words, not code anymore. We want to say a capital or uppercase letter is, yeah, something like that. So we enter any letter in small letters. Maybe F is going to give us a capital F. Let's try to enter maybe F, no, okay, let's try R. It will give us a capital R. So that's how you can change a small letter, or uppercase to lowercase, or lowercase to uppercase, by just subtracting this and keeping it in the appropriate data type. If you have just this one without casting it into a character, then it will just show you the number that is representing that letter. Okay, so this is what we had as introduction to this. And before we finish maybe this part, we also had functions that can be used to do the transformation, to change from lowercase to uppercase. Instead of using maybe this formula where we are subtracting, there was a function that you use. You could use it to up and to lower. So you can use to up and to lower to actually convert your numbers or your letters. So just get your letter, then you can use it to up to get that letter and assign it to appropriate whatsoever. So here, instead of maybe using what minus blah 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 blah, you just say to upper. You just have it to upper. So it will take that letter and convert it into capital letter. So we are using the to upper. So if you put anything like, for example, T, it will give you a capital T. Maybe we try to put anything like what? Like N, it will give you a capital N. So it's to upper, and with to upper, of course, even if you give it something which is not a number, which is not alphabetical letter, it's going to retain it and give you a proper one. Unlike the one which we are just subtracting, we need to be very careful and control which ranges are actually valid. But this one is able, if you give it something which is an alphabetical letter, it's going just to maintain that using to upper or to lower. But if we are to use what we had before, what we had before this one, which is just a letter minus 32, and we have entered something which is not a letter, we're going to have some problems. For example, here we can have the same H. Let's try the same H. And what we are getting is not a capital letter of H. It's not maintaining it, and it's giving us something which is not making sense, because it's taking the code of H and subtracting 32 from that. So it's pointing to another character, which is not something we want. So when you're implementing your own program to convert from one case to another, you need to put some checks so that the numbers that are, or the letters or characters that are converted are only alphabetical letters. Should not include those which are not alphabetical letters. Okay, so I think that demonstrates our first part of the presentation. We just wanted to be familiar with the characters first, then we can have maybe the other part of more manipulation of strings in our next video. So see you next.